Welcome to the EMEA Recruitment Podcast, brought to you in partnership with Operation Smile. To find out more about how Operation Smile transforms lives around the world, please visit emearecruitment.com/operation-smile. In this episode, we're joined by René Behr, the Chief People Officer at IWC Schaffhausen. René shares his belief that challenges and failures should drive learning opportunities to power performance. He explains how IWC Schaffhausen puts this into practice with its resilience program.
So, hello everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the EMEA Recruitment Podcast, in partnership, as ever, with our good friends over at Operation Smile. As my colleague Rose has mentioned, we're delighted to welcome René onto the show today. So hopefully you can still hear and see me okay, René.
I do. Hi, Paul.
Hi. How are you today?
Very good, and thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. And we've got some really interesting questions coming up for you. Some of these questions have come from internally here at EMEA, and we've had a couple thrown in externally from mutual connections. So hopefully, some challenging questions for you to go through today, and interesting ones for the audience to hear.
Super. I can't wait to answer them.
That's cool. And I thought we'd start off with a nice kind of easy one to maybe get you settled into the show. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, the podcast show is in partnership with the charity Operation Smile. So one thing we would like to ask every guest before we get into the detail of other questions is, what was the last thing that made you smile? So I thought I'd ask you, René, what was that thing that was the last thing that made you smile?
You just said that you would start off with an easy question. It's a very difficult question for me to answer for. No, actually, I'm a very happy and joyful person. So I am smiling a lot every day. And I think it's a question of mindset. So I can choose if I want to be happy or not. So every day, again and again and again. But if you would ask me what a moment this year of an extra smile was, I do remember one because I'm always looking forward to it, actually. We are offering a lot of apprenticeships every year. And the moment the new apprentices are starting their first step in business, and also the moment when they are finished, is so exciting. So they've done their exams, and you can see how much they have developed over the last 3 to 4 years. And that makes me smile big times. And I'm very grateful that I was, and I'm part of it.
I mean, it's really cool. Is this an annual thing that you run at IWC, is it?
Exactly, yes. It's every year. I think it's 9 apprenticeships now. And normally they start at the age of 15. And then we have them for 3 to 4 years. And then you can see how they grow up, how they develop into a different person.
No, that's really cool. And it's one of those things that I think, when most people think about what makes them happy or makes them smile, it's very often around the subject of giving something back or helping other people in some shape or form, which I think will form a few of the other questions we have coming up in this show as well. And so it's good to see that that's a theme that actually runs through your daily life, but also your career as well, potentially. And I think maybe even linked into this. I mean, you've obviously had a number of great years in the human resource function, worked at some of the most recognizable, best companies out there, and now obviously at IWC as well. I was kind of wondering, what it was that made you choose HR, whether it was something you chose yourself, or whether it was you had an influence from somebody or something in your life that made you choose HR in the first place, really.
No, I've always been fascinated by the human dynamics, I would say, and the way people interact within businesses. There was not an enlightening moment in my early days, which has driven me towards HR, to be very honest. I always wanted to work with people and help people. And as a side note, that's maybe quite interesting, I'm also by profession a trained doctor in human medicine. So working in HR still let me work with people, but I don't have to perform surgery on them. But kidding aside, I think HR is the most influential function in business, or at least it should be. And success stands and falls with people. And we as HR professionals can and must do everything that people can grow, develop, and be successful. And for sure, David Ulrich, and you all know him, was someone who has influenced and inspired HR leaders around the world the most, I would say. He's the father of modern HR. He looked beyond the administrative function and exposed HR as a strategic partner within the business. But I'm also quite keen and a big fan of Simon Sinek with the Y, and also Laszlo Bock, the former CHRO from Google. If you have read Work Rules, has influenced how I see the power of HR in the business.
No, I mean, it's really interesting to see because, you mentioned, David Ulrich, Simon Sinek, especially. These are two people that, that have actually influenced the business model here at EMEA quite a lot as well, I would say. Exactly. And I think, if you can have those types of influences on your life and career, then you're not going to go too far wrong. I think they are well known. They have a good voice out there, and generally, speak a lot of common sense really as well, which is great. So it's good to see they've formed the foundation of that. But you think how different your career could have been, right, if you'd gone down the surgeon route? It's
a very good question, actually. No, I think I would have been a very passionate doctor, and I still have to perform some practices on my family, so I'm not completely out of it. But to work with people, to be there, to see how people can grow is really pleasing.
No, it's really cool. And it kind of seamlessly moves on to the next question I had lined up here, actually. There was a couple of quotes that I saw from your LinkedIn profile that I thought they really stood out, and I thought it'd be great to kind of bring them into the show as well. So I'm just going to read one of them here. One of them is dream big, define and build your own success with lasting impact beyond time, which I think is a really great quote to have on there as your headline on your LinkedIn page. So I thought really I'd almost ask you a question related to this and say, well, what has been the biggest success of your career?
That's a very good question. I think that's difficult to describe. And looking back more than, oh my God, I'm old, 25 years of my professional life. But I think what I'm most proud of is the impact my efforts had on people, whether it's mentoring emerging leaders or creating environments where talent can thrive, or aligning HR practices with a greater sense of purpose and sustainability. I think this lasting impact goes beyond any specific achievement or project, and it's reflected in the empowered individuals and resilient businesses I've worked over the last years. And for me, true success lies in shaping a future where businesses and people grow in tandem. So leaving a legacy that transcends time, so to speak. And there's one moment I remember strongly, actually, and it was a very young new apprentice 20 years ago, so a long time ago. And he was coming from a not easy family, no support from his parents and so on. And we had a lot of problems with him during the entire apprenticeships. Even, I don't know, speaking to the police. And it was really at the edge. But we never gave up. And I remember myself pushing him so many times and pushing him very hard. And finally, he passed his exams at the edge, to be honest. But nevertheless, he changed after all for good. And now, believe it or not, he has opened his own business. He is driving a cycling business. So he is a businessman himself now. And he's also educating young apprentices who have challenging backgrounds. So, and I can tell you, I'm very proud of him, and it still gives me goosebumps. And it showed when you believe in something or in someone, do it all the way, even if it's difficult.
No, it's really interesting. And again, a great example linking into things we talked about before with your kind of emphasis and focus on helping people and that driving your success and personal happiness as well. I guess within that, it's always a bit of a, I suppose, anyone listening to this show who's managed people or tried to mentor people, it's never easy, because for everyone that's a success, you have one that maybe is harder to get to that level of success. And sometimes it can be, I suppose, where you believe in the person more than they believe in themselves, and that means it equally is then hard to keep yourself, happy and motivated if you're going through a challenging time with others. So has there been a kind of a moment in your time that you look back on and think, I wish I'd have done something slightly differently, or if you had your time again, you go back and just change something in an approach or an angle you took on something?
How much time do we have? No, you know what? I think I can tell you I made a lot of mistakes, especially transitioning from being a trained doctor into HR. And I've done so many things also wrong. And I'm still doing now from time to time. And you know what? I think it's good. Mm-hmm. And as I told you, I'm smiling quite a lot, and seriously, failing from time to time makes you stronger. So you just need to get up, shake it off, and learn something. But I think the one thing which always strikes me is my gut feeling, or more precisely, that I didn't pay attention to it from time to time. So there were some, I would say, hires in the past where I haven't been successful in recruiting, and I should have listened to my gut feeling. And sometimes, and I think that applies to everyone, sometimes you are impressed with someone's CV or even a recommendation from someone. And over the time, I've learned to listen to my gut and follow what I feel, or at least to put this into perspective when it comes to the final decision. But trusting your gut is so important, and we should not pay attention to it.
I know. I mean, it's really interesting because I think in this day and age where we have so much data and information available, and a lot of companies now obviously use psychometric testing as well as a whole host of other ways to evaluate individuals. The gut feeling people have is often one that isn't kind of utilized as much as it used to be, but often it can be right. So, you know, you have a feeling that something's not quite right, and despite all the information you've got in front of you, but it's harder to make your gut feeling heard when you're sitting down with all these Excel spreadsheets or all these pie charts and so on, saying, well, we should hire or we should fire this person. It's harder to bring your gut feeling to the table and make it heard, I suppose.
Exactly. And it's really, I think it's part of the decision. I should not lead it, but you should pay attention to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is it. And I think it's, I know it's something we're going to talk about a little bit later on in more detail as well, from what you're doing at the moment at IWC as well. And I thought, before we move on to that, another quote that I thought was really, really interesting from your LinkedIn profile was, be the change you want to see, which I thought, again, another really, really good quote on there. And I was wondering how you put that into practice, René.
Yeah, I'm not Gandhi, because Gandhi referred to it, to be honest. And you looked at my profile quite closely. No, but there are so many quotes regarding change. And as I said, Gandhi referred to it, not exactly in these words, but very, very close. And also Mark Twain spoke about it when he said that we are like chameleons or something like that. And even Norman Winston Pale said, change your thoughts and then you change your world. So for me, it means being a champion of change, leading by example, and fostering a culture of continuous improvement. So don't just talk about it, do it, and walk the talk. And if you want changes to happen, do it. I don't know, Paul, if you have ever tried to change your partner. Have you? I don't know.
Not recently.
Good luck. I'm trying it hard since almost 20 years, and really getting annoyed when the plates are not in the dishwasher. But you need to be the change if you want things to change. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Put it yourself there,
Mm-hmm. No, but it's one of those things that I guess I'm thinking of. How people, the listeners might, the questions the listeners might have at this point, and I suppose it's one of those things they might say. Well, it sounds quite easy to say, but it's not easy to do. You can read the books and have the knowledge, but then to actually put it into practice consistently, because I suppose what happens often is you might read a book or go on a course, I know, a few days afterwards, a week after you're putting things into practice, then eventually old habits creep in. So I mean, how have you managed to kind of keep this going over time? Because I suppose that must have been tough to keep it going over time, really.
I think the good thing is if you are telling people, they make yourself accountable somehow. So the more you tell people, the more control you have over your actions and behaviors. So my feeling is if I tell people what I would like to change or to do, I don't know, like doing more sports, I'm quite vocal about it, and then people ask me, and if then I have to say, listen, I've quit the gym and I'm not working out anymore, then at least I feel guilty. So my strategy is tell people what you would like to change, do it, and let them, I would say, take you into accountability somehow that you're really doing it.
No, I like that, and I guess what I was thinking of as you're talking about that, I suppose there's an equivalent to be made when people are doing, maybe they're running a marathon or a half marathon for charity, you know, and they're posting about it and obviously raising money for the charity. And I think, and comparing that to somebody who's not posting about it and is just registered for the event and is quietly going to do it, the person who's more likely to duck out is the one who isn't talking about it and doesn't have anything, to lose, maybe from maybe from an ego point of view, I don't know, but it's that kind of thing that can kind of drive you forward, and you're committing to it, but you're being vocal about it, and it means it's more likely. So I think that's it's good to hear, and hopefully that would answer a question I think the network would have there. So that's cool. So
keep telling people what you would like to do, and then let it happen.
So on the subject of change, I know when we caught up a few weeks ago, we were talking about the changes that obviously are happening at IWC at the moment. And you were talking about what I thought was an amazing program that you're putting together on building resilience. So building resilience to power performance. That's the title of the program at IWC. And I thought, what better platform to ask you the question on that as to what it's all about and how it's working. I thought that'd be really inspiring for people to hear about, really.
Super exciting. It's a topic which is very close to my heart, actually. The program is called Resilience Powers Performance. So it's a very holistic program designed to equip our teams with the tools to manage stress, adapt to challenges and changes, and at the same time maintaining high performance. It focuses, so to speak, on mental and physical well-being, mainly also on leadership development and the importance of a growth mindset. So if we look into the leadership aspect as one of the integral parts of the program, we call it leading with gratitude. And when you look into that, gratitude is very much often underestimated, yet it plays a very crucial role in building resilience. And research has shown that people who regularly practice gratitude tend to be healthier, happier, and much more productive. So when we look into the why, speaking about Sinek again, we see that gratitude helps to reduce stress and strengthens relationship, and it improves mental well-being, all of which are fundamental to personal resilience. And finally, it's not just a feel-good concept. When I presented it first, everybody was thinking, it's let's say another HR concept. It's about feeling good and so on. No, it's a leadership practice that can build resilience, improve performance, and drive productivity.
And how does it work? I mean, I guess you're not going to be able to tell us everything about the whole program, but just in terms of the actual structure of it. I mean, is it like a lunchtime meeting every week, or do you have Teams chats or so on? How does it actually work in practice?
We have a lot of components. It needs to start with the top. So the senior executive team needs to buy in, and they have to be completely aware and supporting, which we have done. So we have run a couple of workshops in person with a competency partner, ensuring that we, as the senior X team, understands what the challenges are, what mental resilience mean, and also practicing it. And then we are cascading it down over a time frame now of 2 to 3 years down the ranks, ensuring that it's a very personal one in a team physical meeting or workshop, exploring a little bit about your own personal resilience level, and then expanding it into your leadership role, and so on and so on. This is followed by a couple of lunch and learns, what you just have said. So lunch sessions on specific topics on nutrition, on physical education, sports, and we always align it to a monthly theme. For example, in January, when we have the January, this is something new, I guess, coming up. So with meat for a month, and also the dry Jan. So we combine it a little bit to explain and to teach people about that. I think the main aspect is that we have to educate people what it is. And what we have seen is that it's still a taboo. So when people are mentally ill somehow, they are still scared to tell. When you have broken your leg and go into the office, everybody is pitying you and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Can I help you?" People are not often revealing that they have a broken mind or a broken heart. So I think to de-taboo, I don't know how the word is, to let people speak about it, it's the first step. Then you need to educate, and then you need to really put it into practice. And it is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Otherwise, it would be a project, and it's not a project. It's really a cultural topic.
No, it's really interesting, and I'm a big fan of the gratitude kind of journals and so on, and the reason that I'm a fan of it is because I know it works. You know, I think I've worked on this myself, and the impact it has is huge. And I think, you know, aligned to mental health, I mean, the majority of people, I think, are always thinking about what they don't have, you know, what they want to do in the next paycheck, what they don't have in their job, what they don't have in their lives. It is where most people's minds go to, rather than thinking, actually, well, what do I have? What have I got in my life that I should be really, you know, delighted for and happy for at this very moment in time, you know? And I think it's kind of in some ways controlling the voice in your head to be a more positive influence rather than a negative one. I'd say it's and I think, you know, maybe, I don't know, maybe this has been a challenge for you, but to get, you know, I can imagine for every one person that is positive about it, there's potentially somebody who's not so positive. I mean, have you found that the reaction to it has been mixed, or has it been generally very positive, positively received?
Funny enough that you asked this, because we have done a leadership conference a couple of weeks ago, actually, and we introduced the topic to the wider audience. And I had the impression before we launched it that people are a little bit, let's say, suspicious. Again, another HR project coming on, and let him talk. And it's let's say it's over soon. And another project is coming. But to be honest, we have had very good feedback, and it was amazing how people were interactive. Also on the gratitude topic, because we have then asked them to write a gratitude note for someone in the room. It was 120 people or so. And everybody was very engaged, and they had to share it by the end of the day. And you could see and feel the positivity and the energy in the room. And I think the last person doubting was not doubting anymore, because it was framed in a very good environment. And again, we call it specifically by intention, resilience powers performance. We don't say it's a mental health program or so. I think there we would have more resistance.
I mean, it's great. I mean, because the positive impact on this is potentially huge. I mean, you know, it makes the culture of the business, you know, happy, you know, a good place to be, improves retention, improves outputs, and, you know, I mean, there's so many positives behind it that are potentially linked to this. So it's it'd be really interesting to kind of see how it carries on, you know, and catching up with you later on next year maybe to see where it's at. But it's but I guess part of it is how you measure it. I mean, how do you really measure the success of it, I guess? Exactly.
And you have to. I think we measure success both so qualitatively and quantitatively through different things like employee feedback, a performance matrix, and also engagement surveys. And it's about seeing how resilient and adaptable our people are during challenging time. And we are tracking improvements in productivity, job satisfaction, and retention rates. I said it before, it's not just a feel-good concept. So therefore, we have built, and you have to have a solid business case for it. And if you look into the statistics on retention, the statistics on hiring people for a position, or even if you look into burnout cases, when you look into how much a burnout case costs you, it's without any doubt that this is the right way forward.
No, and I think part of it you mentioned earlier on, that this is something that the top managements are all on board with, which I think is vital for the success of this. Then it's something that then trickles down into the business because they believe in it as well. And I suppose you mentioned it a bit earlier about the retention of people as well. And I had a question. I mean, obviously, we're going to have a question about recruitment. You can't come on a recruitment podcast and not have a question without talking about recruitment. But mine is linked to this, really. I mean, I suppose, with this new initiative that's in, this is part about keeping great people, having a great culture. But also, I suppose, when you're looking to bring people in, this also then is part of the process for that, and getting quality people in an efficient and effective way, but also knowing that if you incorporate this, you're likely to keep people longer. So is this now, do you think, going to become part of your recruitment process, really, when you're looking to get the right people in?
Yeah, it is. I guess it is part of the culture, or it has to be part of the culture. And we will look into what kind of aspects, and we pair it with the values and everything, and then see and mirror and match if that person is, let's say, capable or resilient enough, really, to also be in the business for long. And it's very interesting. As I said, it's a shift of mindset now, looking into the leadership teams, that they also questioning a little bit how they interview, what kind of aspects. Is it the standard interview, or do we need to include this, what you just have said, into the interview process, and how can we measure it, bringing someone on board? We haven't found the answer yet, but I'm happy to catch up if we have the ultimate idea on how can we measure it during the interview process, because that's not so easy. Because it's a long-term KPI.
Yeah. But nonetheless, I mean, it's something that I guess when your colleagues are talking about IWC, the culture, and what are the things that are happening there, this is a great thing to be able to, for them to be able to talk about as a sales point for the business. I mean, IWC is obviously a very well-known brand, a traditional Swiss brand, and but actually by having this new initiative, it's showing that it's a traditional business, but very much with their finger on the pulse of what's going on in the modern world, and trying to make sure you're balancing both the things, really.
No, and it is an industry which is very traditional. I completely agree. But I think here and there it's good to push the boundaries a bit, to expand comfort zones, and to try things out. And if it doesn't work, move on. It's a little bit like failing. Get up, shake it off, and try something new. And I think this one, as I said, is quite important from a cultural aspect. And you can also see the responses after we have launched it, where people actually say, we are so grateful that you, A, focus on it, and B, give us time to think about it. No, it's great. And it sounds like it's a great initiative. I mean, when you mentioned it to me the other day, I thought, wow, this is something that's, to be honest, I'd like to bring into EMEA. I think generally a lot of companies would really benefit from that as well, I think. So it's really, really good to hear about. So it's kind of watch this space and see how it develops, really, I guess. So that's really, really cool. Yes.
Really
Let's
good,
get in touch. Happy to share the experiences, knowledge, and so on. I think it's quite a topic anyway moving forward.
That's it. So we're talking a bit about kind of moving forward, looking into the future here, but actually I'd like to change track of the questioning now and almost take you back, actually. So I always like to try and have a few, let's say, unusual questions in the show, which maybe where people are not asked to these kind of questions very often, and causes them to be a bit retrospective in terms of their life and career. So maybe a tough one for you, but if you were going back in time and you were faced with the 21-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give to that 21-year-old version of René?
That's a very good question. 21, Paul. It's like centuries ago. Good question, actually. I think I would tell my younger self to embrace challenges and failures as learning opportunities, and don't be afraid to take risks. I was a bit resilient, to be honest, or risk aversive when I look into my 21-year young age one. But at the same time, remain authentic and true to your values. So most importantly, stay curious, because when you're young, you're very curious, and this maybe fades out a bit getting older. Stay curious and keep evolving and ask questions. And as I said, be true to yourself.
No, that's good. And I think you're right. You know, obviously, I think, especially when you're younger, you're very susceptible for the kinds of people that you're surrounded by. I mean, you could say that actually when you're older as well, you become the total of the people you spend the most time with, is a common phrase you see out on social media. But I think when you're younger, you know, if you're surrounded by people who are maybe risk averse, you become kind of risk averse because of the people you're with or your background and so on. So it's great that you've kind of you see that, but you come through it, and you've changed. Well, I always say completely changed your attitude to risk. Really, you would say now. So it's it's quite interesting to see that journey and how that's developed. So that's really cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And we were talking a bit earlier on about, you know, the dreaming big and the successes you've had. You know, and I thought I should ask you what your next project is. You know, you're talking about dreaming big. So what's the next big dream you've got that you want to fulfill?
That is also a good question. I think professionally, I'm still focused on helping to shape the future of work here and there, and ensuring that we continue to foster an environment that empowers our colleagues to be innovative, to collaborate and grow, and at the same time to support our company's business transition, because we are changing business models, which is quite interesting, and I think therefore HR plays always a vital role, because it's all about people, and I don't need to remind everyone that change projects always fail because of people, not because of the project. Somehow because people are not buying in, and you haven't taken them on the change curve, and therefore I think it's quite not a dream, but I think it's an ongoing dream. And finally, being part of a successful future where HR is positioned as a very valuable part of the business. And that has changed, I guess. I do remember 25 years ago where HR was a bit in the shadow. And I think we all have worked a lot to push HR out of it and to really earn your seat at the table. And I think I'm still the one who's still pushing for it and ensuring that HR gets also the attention what we need to have.
No, I mean, I think you see this with there was the lady, the CHRO from Unilever, who went on to be CEO. I think Lena Nair, her name was, right? That's something not. I mean, at least from my knowledge, you don't tend to see very often. You might know more than me on that side, but it's a sign of how the HR function is developing and getting more of that credibility. Because I think maybe 15 years ago you wouldn't have seen that happen, you know. So I think it's great to see that the seat at the table is becoming it's a stronger, more solid seat at the table than it probably has been for a number of years, really, I'd say.
Finally. but you need to do this consistently, and I think we need to not, I don't know, being fine now and wait, because it can go away in a very short time. So we need to come up with new things and really understand the business, try to speak the business language somehow, and showing our valuable added benefit.
Yeah, that's it. It's and I thought, well, the last question I thought I'd ask you, and it's again linked to something we've been talking about already today, about the gratitude side of things. So I thought it might be you might need to get your gratitude journal out to have a look at the answer for this one. But I thought I'd ask you what you feel grateful for today, really.
First of all, you, because you put me on the show. So thank you again for having me. Now, I think today I'm most grateful for the people I worked with and the trust they have placed and placed in me. So my first manager saw something when I transitioned to HR. He saw something in me which I haven't seen. I have never envisioned myself there. So I'm very grateful that he pushed me into a profession I wasn't aware of. I have never heard about HR, to be very honest, just between you and me. And when I experienced it, I was very enthusiastic about it. And from a private point, I think for a partner who let me do so many things, crazy things, and supported and supports me all the time and all the way.
No, I mean it's really interesting because obviously there's two individuals there who've influenced your life greatly, and I think I think it's you tend to find that actually that's the way it goes for most successful people. They're because they have a certain mannerisms about them. They go into the room, they are happy and lively and they're happy to speak to people. They network better, and then the opportunities come around off the back of that. But equally, as you say, most successful people they can't have the success without having the support and help at home. It's and you've got to be happy at home to be happy in life and career. So I think it's getting everything lined up and in the right place, which it sounds you've done. You've done very well. That's right. So so it's working. So the gratitude, the happiness, the helping people, it's all coming back around, and it's working very well. So it's a good message really to end on here, I think, right?
Super. No, totally agree. I think you need to have both sides, and you can't be successful on one side if you're not on the other side, and that is vice versa. And really to be grateful and to work on both sides. Again, not to give any relationship advices, but I think you have to work on your private relationships as well as on your business relationships, and that is ongoing. You should not stop.
Yeah, no, very true, very true. Well, a huge thank you again for being on the show today, René. I know you've had a pretty full-on day, because I know before we came on air, you were saying, okay, you just got back from Austria, so straight from the airport onto a podcast, and now you can rest and hopefully get some dinner and put the telly on now. So that's good. And but huge thanks. It's been really, really interesting. I knew it was going to be from the conversations we've had before. So there's a lot of great stuff in there. So just out of interest, if anyone wants to reach out to you, I guess it is LinkedIn the best way they can connect with you?
The best way is LinkedIn, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so cool. What we'll do, we'll make sure we put a hyperlink to your profile on there with the show, so it's easy for people to connect. But once again, huge thank you, René. Enjoy the rest of the day, and really insightful. Thanks again.
Super. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Ciao. Bye.